This episode of Yes But Why podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/Yes But Why. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Download your free audiobook today at audibletrial.com/Yes But Why. I'm Amy Jordan, and this is Yes But Why podcast. Yeah.
And I love this memory too, because when we graduated, we graduated, we had the ceremony at the Mellon Arena, which is now, it's no longer there, but it's where the Pens would play hockey. And we were in playoffs at the time, so we graduated on the playoff ice. They threw a bunch of mats down. It was bitter cold. You know, they packed the arena, and we're all sitting on these like black tarps on top of ice, like in our, you know, graduation gowns, and like all the women have like, you know, dresses on and heels, and we're like all shivering because it's so cold in there. And, you know, it was a really cool like graduation, just because that was so unique. I'll never forget that. And then the Pens won the playoffs, and it was like a huge deal. But yeah, they would separate it by school. Point Park is known mostly, I would say, for dance and musical theater. That's a huge portion of all of the money that goes into the university. And those departments are part of the conservatory. They call it the Conservatory of Performing Arts. And when I was a freshman going into Point Park, they decided to put the film students in the conservatory, which was weird because we didn't really know what was in it. Like, you know, there was the dancers, there was musical theater, there was acting, and then there was film. And we were kind of considered like the conservatory outcasts. But it was a really cool school because I graduated knowing and being very close with pretty much everybody that was in the program, who I still keep in touch with. And that was one of the key elements of going there, was networking and making, you know, connections that would last forever. And it's been cool seeing friends working in the industry and working alongside people that I went to school with, which is really fun. But yes, I went to Point Park for cinema and digital arts, which was just a fancy way of saying the side of filmmaking.
So what part of film they teach you? You mentioned that they didn't really mention the casting process, but what was their focus? And what did you go there for? What were you hoping to be when you started?
So Point Park it's a really awesome university. They have a very immersive program. But when I started, the digital program for filmmaking was fairly new. It had only been implemented for one full year before I got there. So I think they were still trying to find their footing, and they had established a screenwriting concentration, a producing concentration, a directing, and a cinematography concentration. And every student was required to learn about those in their freshman year, the basics. And then by your junior year, you were supposed to choose one of those concentrations to basically earn your full degree in. But every year, you were making 2 to 3 films in that year. So a lot of the work that we did was filmmaking. You know, we had our theory classes and we would, you know, sit and critique films, but for the most of, you know, our time there, we were helping each other make films. And by your senior year, you kind of went out on your own. You found your own crew, you found your own actors, you found your own funding, and you made a film in the position that you chose. So it's kind of hard. A lot of people go to film school because they want to be a director and they want to make movies. And then you learn about the positions, the realistic positions of a film, and you start to find your niche. And I really wanted to be a director. When I first went to Point Park, I was like, you know, I don't have a lot of female directors to idolize. You know, there's like Nancy Meyers, and there's, you know, who I absolutely adored, and Penny Marshall. But I felt like, you know, there needs to be more female directors, and that was my mindset going into it. And then my professors said to me, "Why are you trying to be a director? You are clearly more a producer. You have a financial mindset. You are a good balance between reality and creativity, and that is what a producer does." And so that was my main focus at Point Park, was producing. And I actually minored in cinematography, which seems crazy to me. I haven't touched a camera in forever. But part of the producers part was to go out and find funding and find the actors. They really heavily put that on the producer, which in the real world of filmmaking, which I learned once I got out of school, that couldn't be further from the role of the producer. You know, you hire a casting director to do that. Because the program was so new, they just didn't have enough professors teaching every aspect. You know, we didn't have anything for set deck. We didn't have anything for construction or for the art department. So they really just taught us the core for, you know, screenwriting, directing, producing, cinematography, you know, the most, in their minds, the most important aspects of the process. And they encouraged us to go out and intern on films and commercials and, you know, whatever was in the area, whatever was in Pittsburgh at the time, to kind of learn better. But it was really hard to do that while we were making our own movies every weekend and going to class during the week. And so it really wasn't until after I had graduated that I discovered how important casting is and how little they really taught any of that to us at Point Park.
Yeah, I think of it similarly to directing, in that you are sort of like the first person to have a creative crack at building the team. You know, the director picks for who's going to work on the movie, but then it's like, okay, but now the casting director picks the team who's going to present it to us, and that sometimes is more important. I've definitely watched things where the writing is crap so good that I was like, yeah, I'll watch this forever.
Yeah, I know. I feel the same way. I say that to my husband all the time, especially now, you know, kind of understanding what a lot of actors go through. You know, if a script is terrible, but an actor can make it good, then they are tenfold what they should be in their career. Because I've been in many situations where I've watched a film and I thought to myself, this story doesn't make any sense, but I'm so captivated by the actors that I'm just going to keep going. Like I'll see it through to the end. And then some of them are my favorites just because of the cast. Yeah.
Can I just tell you a little quick story? I did, and I won't name names, so don't worry. But I was at Austin Film Festival, and I had watched a series of shorts, and one of them was just like super deep. Just like felt like it was like Metaphor City. You know what I mean? Like it was just whoa, what's this really about? So I went up to the guy after and was all like, so, you know, like, what did that represent? And bro was legit just like, oh, I don't know. I mean, I just thought it was cool. And I just wanted to be
no. Oh,
Like, I just
you're
really
like, you
wanted to
lucked
stop
out.
and be like, okay, so you're at a film festival. You're going to, next time somebody asks you that question, you're going to make some shit up. And you're going to make it sound cool. Okay?
Ugh.
Like,
Even if the answer changes.
Like,
Yeah, that's...
I just thought that was so funny. I was just so like, are you not part of this process with the rest of us? Like, do you not understand the full... Like, it just seemed so funny. Such a funny situation.
Oh my
but
God.
at the same time, like, it's funny that he himself was not committed, but the actors, I mean, because the whole thing was like, what is this thing? And everybody was so like, everybody in it was like very serious. There was like no inkling of like, I don't know what this means. Like, it was just like super like, oh my God. It would be like the X-Files ending and the guy being like, nah, I don't care about aliens. Like, what?
Oh my God.
You wrote 20 seasons and you don't care at all?
And
Like,
you don't have an opinion on this?
you literally,
oh my God.
It doesn't occur to you? Like, and I get some people, like, they just do their job, and bless them for doing their job. But like, oh, just like, so
that
funny.
is the best part of filmmaking, is like that you get to, I mean, even if dude didn't have like a full-on answer, you could still be cryptic with that as well, and it would still like be awesome and work as an artist. That's what cracks me up, is you watch a movie, and I love movies where you walk away and you can interpret it like 15 ways.
Yeah.
And if you really think hard on it, it like drives you nuts. And in your mind, you're like, oh, if only I could just ask the filmmaker the one thought he had or she had. Like, what was the process for them? Because then I could at least, like, narrow down my thoughts on it. And I have seen, and I've been in the room with directors who have missed meaning in their scripts. Maybe not necessarily scripts, but when you're a director, you're such a part of the script coming to life, and you're such a part of the rewrite. And I have walked in the room as actors are reading the lines back, and some of the impact of the lines fall on deaf ears to these directors, where they're like, oh, that's not how I saw the scene at all. And I just think to myself, oh, but that's why we brought in who we brought in, because this scene it's so deep and there's such a huge meaning to it. And if you're not seeing that meaning, then you're totally going to pick the wrong actor, and we just kind of have to sit there and let them make their movie and kind of writhe in our skin a little bit when you get those people that are like, oh, I didn't see it like that at all. Like, I just, I saw it for what it is, very surface about it. It drives me nuts.
It's funny too, and maybe you can illuminate this because you know more about film in general. I've only been in the position of being an actor, to be honest. I've often thought about trying to get into other parts of it just because it's like super fascinating, but I've mostly done live theater in my life. But so when there is a film to be done, now, I'm sure in college it's a little different, but the director isn't like talking to the actors about like their motivation and like, doing that much in the way of rehearsal. It's rare when a director rehearses, right? So like a significant portion of how the movie's gonna be is developed by casting. What is your thought on that? Maybe I'm making it up.
Well, it's so funny because, like, I've seen it both ways. When you're in film school and you're learning how to become a director, at least at Point Park, they stress to us so much to never tell an actor what to do and to never shine an example on how they should do what, because you're casting actors who have knowledge of how to interpret a script, and hopefully they're getting what you're putting out there. There's always they always say, like, don't do what I'm doing method of directing. If you're going to be a good director, then you answer questions more so than tell them what to do. And in the back of my mind was always like, going into casting, I thought about that. I'm like, to me and to a lot of the people that come in the room, is the sign of a good actor is that they they read the script and they make a decision based on that character. Even if it's not the same decision that the director has in mind, they're going to put it out there and the director's going to be aware of what they're capable of. But I have been, two directors I've worked with that one I've seen work and the other I've never seen work. I just know that he does it. Richard Linklater is huge on rehearsals. He likes to take days working with the actors, running the scenes, and giving them their motivation. And I do think it shows. He's maybe not in his later films, but in his early work. I mean, before Sunrise, that film is a conversation. It's like a 2-hour-long conversation. Nothing happens the entire time. I've never watched a movie and felt more strongly about a couple kissing or getting together and cheering them on than that movie. And all they're doing is talking to each other. But those actors, Ethan Hawke, they knew who they were portraying so well, and they had worked together so much that they fit like puzzle pieces together. And David Fincher does the same thing. He rehearses. He's big on that. I know that from Mindhunter, and a lot of the other, directors that come in and they assist or they do 2 episodes here, an episode there, they're very similar and they kind of do what he does. And I don't know if that's David asking it of them or if they feel I should do it just to make sure that I'm at the same caliber that David's at. But there's kind of a power in it because some of the best decisions that come down from actors or some of the most beautiful moments in a movie totally by accident. We've had actors come into the room and audition and they flub a line and they just create their own line. And the director's like, I love that. That was so much better than what we had written. We're going to go with that. And that to me is like the ultimate sign of the director-actor relationship because it's so collaborative. And of course, you're going to get the few directors that are totally chauvinistic and don't want their words adjusted or changed, and they are the tell the actor what to do type of director. But yeah, there's a real power from actors. It's something I noticed because I in my life would never want to be in front of the camera. Every actor that comes into the casting room, I'm like in awe of because it's such a hard job. It really is difficult. And, they're in front of some pretty influential people and some actors have those really like make or break moments. It's like the audition to end all auditions and they have to go in there and be somebody else while still being aware that they're themselves. That's so hard.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. To what you were saying about the directors, I think the ones, and now that you mentioned it, I feel like a lot of the ones that are doing the rehearsing are looking at films like theater. They have, say, presentational. I mean, because even like Before Sunrise, that's it. Yeah, Before Sunrise. That was like largely improvised, but after they had improvised it like tons and tons of times, they essentially like just did the movie 27 different times, and then we're like, okay, now get the cameras going, like And I personally have worked with Ethan Hawke on in theater, and so like that's a process that like the repetition, the like continuously dealing with something, the going over it and over it and over it, that's something that like works well with him. And I think people who are, who are going to be good in that sort of environment are going to be people that are used to theater. Like I have friends who work in film who would hate it if they had to rehearse, who would be like, why are we wasting our time? Right. But I've seen other things where like seeing different groups, you know, just from theater festival, working a venue, like watching actors get together with a director to like decide what their relationship, the character's relationship is before they start doing the movie. Like, it's like, during the movie, we're not going to do this, but right now we're going to talk about it. And I was like, that's cool. That's a thing I didn't know you could do when you made movies, you know? So I just sort of like try to watch and see what's going on and like ask for stories at film festivals. And I'm like, oh, that's a thing, huh? So when you guys are developing, when you are doing your casting, like, for you, what's the ownership of the experience? Like, when you cast something, do you like look at it later and you're like, job well done, you know, like, is that are you able to have some pride in your work?
For sure. It's so funny because television and Netflix they've become such a big thing, especially streaming. Anything online that's streaming has become so popular, and Pittsburgh is noticing that. We're getting a lot of television, you know, we're getting a lot of streaming, we're getting a lot of series work, which is different. It's, you know, when I started doing casting, it was pretty much strictly film. That was really all we were getting in the city. And the magical thing about film is you work really hard on it, and then when it's over, you go to the theater and you get to see these people that you know work really, and there's kind of this like, I don't know, there's beauty in that. And it's different for series because it takes longer for them, and you know, and you have to stop your personal life and be at home and watch it when you get a chance, and there's a little less bragatory rights in that, you know, like you're not sitting with an audience and listening to them react to the actors on the screen. So I kind of miss when we're not doing feature film because there's just magic in that. But there are definitely moments where I watch something and I think back to the process we went through for the role. Some roles are incredibly difficult. Other roles are really simple, and I'm just that lets me input, you know, so often my thoughts working on. And there have been many actors that I've pitched to directors who maybe didn't audition for, and we show the director an old audition from another project that we had the actor audition for, and that director's like, you know, I really like that person and I want to see them, like have them put something on tape. And there's like a mini triumph inside where I'm like, yay, like I'm spot on with the director and I know what their vision is for this. And then the actor auditions and they nail it. And there's that moment where you feel so much pride. And then there are times where you work really, really hard on a role and they cut the role. And it's this like gut-wrenching feeling where you have to call the actor and say, hey, that you're doing with, you know, Tom Hanks got cut and they don't need you anymore. And it kills you, and, you know, it kind of humbles you for a minute, and you're like, it's just, you know, it's a film, and some roles are, you know, not as important as others. And at the end of the day, we're pushing a product essentially, and we're just hoping that people will respond to it. But yeah, there's
just so many people. Like, the variables involved in making anything are all insane. Like, I made a sketch show on stage once a month for a few years, and the variables on that were insane. And that was like nothing. Like, I didn't film it. There was no after situation. It was like, write stuff down, say it out loud, done. Like, but there were so many things. That's probably the other reason why I haven't gotten into film, because I'm like, so much, too many things. Like, yeah, just, I mean, and most of my actor friends and myself, the idea where it's like, it's not the variable of what you did in the room is so not like, it's a small percentage of what is the major decision-making process. especially when something gets cut, I mean,
oh my gosh.
like we like to say, if you're not doing it right now, it could be not happening at any moment. Like
we work with an actor who I adore him. He's a comedian. He's a stand-up comedian. And I knew him from college days. He would act in a lot of my husband and his roommates' videos. And he's just, you meet these actors that hustle. They work so hard. And he's one of them, he's working so hard. And when we cast him, I'm like, screaming internally. I'm so excited for him. And the past few projects that we have cast him in, his role has ended up on the cutting room floor. And he said to me, he's like, I could make a movie. I could make a full-length movie with every scene I've ever done that was cut. He goes, and now I think I'm just going to add it to my stand-up. Like, it's just funny. Like, at this point, it's just, like, it is what it is. Like, that's just what happens. And I still have the experience, being on set and doing it. But, like, I think about, like, how often there's another scene, I can just add that to the movie of scenes that ended up on the floor. And it's like, gut-wrenching to a certain degree. But, like, to have that positive attitude about it, I mean, you're right. We work with a lot of actors who, after their agent, it's like kind of the same reaction, like, well, it happens. I'm just like, oh my God, actors are so resilient. Like, they're so strong.
Well, there's no
I couldn't
other
do my
option.
job without them. Yeah. You have to have such thick skin to work in it. It's so true.
Yeah, it's not like you can be sensitive if you'd like, but it's just not going to work out for you.
You won't make it. You won't make it a week.
Yeah, absolutely not. So tell me then, you went to film school, you got into producing. What did you do after school that got you into casting at all?
Well, so like a true millennial, which I love that term, and I know a lot of people hate it, but I'm a millennial. I was terrified. I had so much money in student loans that I had to pay back. And, you graduate from film school and you're like, cool, I watched, and now I have to, like, get a real job. What am I going to do? I didn't think about this. So a lot of my friends, like, we're going to LA. You have to go to LA. There's no other option. And in my mind, I was like, that's not an option because I don't have the money to go to LA or the drive. Really, I'm an East Coast girl. I love the rain. I love the gray. So I put out emails and resumes to anything and everything that was slightly related to film. I mean, I was reaching out to, like, medical facilities that did training videos. And I'm like, I could do that. I don't want to do it, but at least it's close to what I went to film school for. And there are 2 casting directors in Pittsburgh, and I only discovered that because I did a search online for film, and I reached out to them, and Donna Belajac was the one and she said, hey, you have a great resume, and it's cool that you went to film school and that it was right here in Pittsburgh, and Point Park is actually like 100 feet from where her office is. And she said, I would love to take on somebody else at the office, but we're a pretty small office, so I can only take an intern. And I'm like, well, I need to get paid, but I can't shut a door if one's going to open for me. So I took an unpaid internship, and I was living at home, which was 45 minutes outside of the city. So I was going in every day. And I just really quickly went through a credit card, paying for parking and gas and my lunch every day. And eventually I said to her, I can't work here. I can't interview anymore because I'm in debt and I have to make money. So I got a job at Starbucks, and I worked there for a week. I barely finished my training week at Starbucks, and I get this phone call. And at that time, we were getting more than one film at once, which was kind of unheard of. You know, Pittsburgh used to be one film a year. And then you'd have like commercials here and there, but commercials last like 2 weeks. They're not really, it's kind of hard to have a sustainable wage on a commercial. So we, you know, it became this thing where it was like, she was working on a film called Unstoppable. And then another movie came in at the same time called Love and Other Drugs. And she didn't know how she would handle that, having two jobs at once. And she had an assistant for Unstoppable, and she called me and she's like, I need you to quit your Starbucks job because I need to have you at the office. Well, that'd be cool, but you have to pay me. And she's like, no, I'm definitely going to pay you. I'm going to put you on as my full-time assistant for Love and Other Drugs. You know, I don't know how long I'll need you, but I need you. So I quit Starbucks and I worked on Love and Other Drugs, and which was a really awesome experience to be my first film. It was directed by Ed Zwick, who, you know, he directed Glory. He's this vetted director who's got an awesome resume of films. And I learned a lot. I had, you know, Donna was so cool. She let me come room for all these director sessions, and, you know, she let me ask questions, which it's kind of like a no-no. That was one thing we learned in film school is don't bug people with unnecessary questions. They're working. So she was great. And unfortunately, the film, yeah, I know. It's so funny.
Don't talk to people. Would you ask
don't
them
talk to people.
Where the bathroom is?
They are busy. Can't you tell? They're swamped. Like, that's like always the thing is they're doing 20 things at once, and they don't need you, some young, fresh out of film school, green intern type PA, to ask them a bunch of questions they don't have time for. But she wasn't like that. Donna was very much, you know, she very clearly had a passion for what she does. So she was quick to share it with me and kind of explain the process. And the sad thing was we finished casting in, I think, like 6 or 7 weeks. And then when the movie was over, she just apologized profusely. She's like, I'm so sorry, but we're done now, and I don't have anything for you. And she felt so guilty about it. She reached out to Love and Other Drugs and asked them if there was any department that they could put me in, just so I could keep working. And wardrobe was in serious need of help, and I started working in wardrobe and fell in love with the wardrobe department, just the people, you know. The local wardrobe supervisor was awesome, and she kind of took me under her wing. And it was Deb Peterson, who was the costume designer from Titanic. So I'm learning about all of her experiences with James Cameron, and it was such a surreal thing for me, especially in Pittsburgh, of all places, to be working with such influential people. And then I stayed in wardrobe for a good 5 years, and I joined the union as a wardrobe coordinator. And I realized that it was, the wardrobe department feels like a totally separate industry in a way. It feels almost more connected to the fashion industry. A lot of costume designers come from fashion. So you don't always feel, I never did at least, truly part of the film world when I was in wardrobe. And I just said to myself, I can't do this anymore. I have to get out of wardrobe. And my last film working in wardrobe was a film called Out of the Furnace, which was amazing. And I kind of took a break, and there wasn't much going on in the city at the time. I was an associate producer of a docuseries that was happening, and I get this phone call from Donna, panicked because her time associate, she kept hearing that was coming in, and she knew she couldn't do it by herself. And I was like, this is perfect timing. You know, I just finished being the associate producer on this gig, and I have time now, and I've been with Donna ever since. And I think that was 2013. And I've just, ever since then, every year the responsibility as casting associate has just gotten larger. You know, I've learned more. I've helped work out deals and kind of started to pay attention to the industry's changing a bit, because it is changing now that we're, you know, everything's so digital. And even this, like, you know, we're states apart from each other, and we can have a conversation in an interview. It's the same for actors. We audition actors from all over. They don't have to be in our office or, you know, face to face with the director to make it happen anymore. So,
but they're still in New York and LA, aren't they?
They are. And
yeah. Interesting.
I have to say, though, our big pool, like, we get a lot of talent out of the Southeast. You know, there's a lot of talent in Florida and Georgia and the Carolinas.
Yeah.
I mean, and we cast a lot of people out of those states. We don't just cast out of Pennsylvania. And it's eye-opening, because it kind of, the amount of talent now in comparison to when I started at Donna's on Love and Other Drugs, it has just shifted. You know, we used to call actors all the time back then that we loved, that we don't really call that often. We have better. There's just, you know, the talent pool has increased so much, it's really awesome.
Do you think that has to do with the actors themselves? Like, is there a new push to be better, or is it just that there's so much more opportunity that people are getting more experienced, or something different?
I think it's crazy, because Carnegie Mellon is in Pittsburgh, and Carnegie Mellon University is considered the best acting school you can go to. And we get a lot of directors that come in to Pittsburgh. The first conversation we have on the phone, reach out to the Carnegie Mellon students. And I get them before they're well known, you know, because there's obviously a huge amount of talent there. And it does depend. When I look at actors we used to work with when they were nothing, when they had never done anything before, and now, you know, they're recurring on television shows, and it's awesome for them. But I think a lot of, just personally, and just the trends among my friends and what I hear among my family, like, I think acting ability has become this form of being able to be realistic based on your personal experiences. A lot of television now, and a lot of stuff that's streaming, which I feel is even more than film, are these either total opposite end of the spectrum, crazy science-y, mystery, fantasy type shows, or these really very down-to-earth, realistic shows. And I think actors are finding it maybe not as challenging to kind of reach into themselves and be like, I can connect with these characters because they're so based in reality. Like, I can find a common connection with them just based on my own personal experiences. Whereas before, I feel like a lot of it was, you know, they kind of had to pull from something that maybe wasn't as real to them. You know, I see it in auditions all the time. We get actors that they get it. You know, I'm seeing it in kids too, which is like absolutely shocking to me, because the market for child actors, I think, is kind of ruined. And there's a lot of trainers out there that train kids on Disney television shows, and that is crazy to me because the kids end up becoming very theatrical. But we get these auditions sometimes, and it's like with Stranger Things, it's like some other level shit where they can pull from, I don't know if it's like a memory or just personal experience that they had that was, you know, very powerful to them, but they can turn it on and off so quickly. It's like they treat it like it is. It's a job.
I actually think it's like, this is going to go off a weird side here, but I actually have this like belief that, you know, I don't know how I feel. I guess I believe in reincarnation. And the idea is that, like, some people are older, further along, they've been around the block more often. And I mean that in a non-sexual way. But you know what I mean? Like, they've been around the reincarnation block. And I've met children, who are settled adult actors in a way that some adults that I've worked with are not that settled or like can actually do it. Like, and part of me is like, that's impossible. But then I teach summer camps and half the kids have got something and half the kids are just running around screaming. Like, people are, you know, it's hard to know, and it's crazy. You're right. It's crazy when you see these kids and you see them like do this major acting thing. And you know, I'm sure, I don't know about you, and I'm sure you're going to be much more positive about it, but like, so I have the baby, right? And so I watch a lot of Sesame Street. So with Sesame Street comes kids acting. Fewer than you'd think, but definitely a lot of kids acting. And because I teach acting to kids now, I'm like critiquing the kids on Sesame Street. Like, I'm like, ugh, come on. I'm like, you're located in New York City and this is the girl you found? Okay. Whose daughter is she? Like, it's like terrible.
It kills me. I know exactly. You know, when we cast any child role, we're always putting out these like gigantic calls to try to get as many auditions as we can, and they usually end up casting the child out of New York.
Yeah,
and it's like, you know, we worked with Paul, and I tell everybody about her because I am just convinced that she is going to be huge one day. Because she.
Wait, who are we talking about? You glitched when you said her name.
Samara Lee. We met her, I'm trying to remember what. We were doing a film called The Last Witch Hunter. And there were several kid roles in that film, and they needed a little girl that is supposed to be kind of sad and afraid and upset, who is actually, in reality, a witch who's very old. She's just transformed herself to make her look like a little girl to kind of surprise this witch hunter.
Sure,
and so it was a complicated role. You know, we needed a little girl that was going to be okay with having to be scary. And there's this an agent down south that we work with all the time, and she submitted this girl to us. And this, you know, in her headshot, Donna and I looked at each other and we're like, she looks like a pageant. You know, like she's probably going to be that cutesy Disney bubblegum crap that we don't want. She felt this unbelievable audition, and I think Donna actually had known of her earlier because I think Donna cast her in Foxcatcher, but she came up and she did a callback in person with our director, and her mom was saying, you know, I'm hoping that I'm doing the right thing. Like, I don't, you know, she seems very interested in acting, and it's always a good sign when the parent is cautious of pushing their child, because then you're like, good, you're not a stage mom. You know, you're aware that you're doing this because your child wants to. Yeah, it's very organic. And we're like, we always tell parents like that, don't worry, you're fine. Her mom showed us this audition she did for Ant-Man when Ant-Man was first conceptualized, and it was with a director, then the guy who ended up getting it. And she was auditioned for Paul Rudd's daughter. And in this scene, she had to be tied up by this like villain, and she had to be crying and struggling. And Samara she was either 4 or 5 years old, and she made me cry. I mean, she was so believable and so terrified, and just her audition was unbelievable. And I thought to myself, she is going to be huge one day because she totally understands. She's got a great imagination, but she also has a really great restraint with her abilities. I'm like, this is like, you find those diamonds in the rough, and then I always write their names down because I'm convinced that one day she's going to be like the next Dakota Fanning. And I'm going to be like, hey, remember? remember her? You know, she auditioned for this tiny little role. And I mean, I get chills when I see, and with it, we've had auditions come from adults where I'm like, I'm crying. You know, we worked on a television series where when we started the show, one of the characters who was going to be recurring, she had an arc. Her storyline was that she was going to be diagnosed with cancer, and she's going through this really hard struggle. And they eventually decided to not go that route with the character. But when we were auditioning actresses, that was the big thing. It was, you know, she had to give the speech while knowing that she's got cancer and she's going through this really horrible internal struggle. And we got this tape from an actress in New York who had lived in Pittsburgh. We knew her from when she was here. And I'm crying watching her audition. And I'm like, there's no way she's not going to get this part, because she connected so well with the character. And maybe she, you know, maybe she knew somebody that had cancer, or maybe she had some tie to that type of a story, but maybe she didn't. But she found a way to connect with that scene, and it was really, really moving. She did actually get the role, which was awesome and very exciting for her because she was a season regular, which was huge.
That's awesome. So,
yeah, it's always fun when that happens. For
you, what is it that keeps you going? Like, you started out school, you clearly had a drive early on. You wanted to be part of this, and you've told me a couple of instances where, you know, there have been things that have said no, and you've kept moving forward. What is it that keeps you moving forward? What is it that keeps you involved? Why not just, you know, quit and go to Starbucks? I mean, you get health insurance even for part-time. It's a pretty good gig.
True. Starbucks was a blast, but I realized
that week was
so
great.
Bad at it was great, except they're like bartenders. That was a hard gig. And people who come into Starbucks, like they're regulars, you know, they know what they like. And if you mess it up, they are not pleasant. Don't mess with you know, when I never wanted to, I shouldn't say I never wanted to work in film. When I loved acting and singing, but I was always a pretty shy kid. And I knew in my heart that I could never, you know, be in front of the camera or really take anything like that seriously, because I would get such horrible stage fright.
I'm sorry. Yeah? Can I pause you for 1 second? My baby has woken up, and
yes,
I need to attend to him for a moment. I'm terribly sorry. So sorry.
Oh no, you're okay.
So to kick it off again, what is it that keeps you going? What is it that keeps you dedicated to all of the intensity that is casting? What brings you back? What makes you love it? And what keeps you in the film industry despite all its wild ups and downs?
So I never really thought about film seriously to work in it. When I was in high school, I had a friend that was always into film, and he said to me, like, I'm leaving high school and I'm going to school for film. And I thought, I never really thought about that. You could go to school to make movies. And now that I work in it, honestly, I can't see myself doing anything else, because it's the structure of in my opinion, although the hours are long, but I feel like a 12-hour day is pretty common for a lot of people now, just the way that our economy is. You almost have to work 12 hours to be able to afford anything. But when I think about where my drive comes for film, I'm going to get deep for a second, but when I was, this is so funny. I was having a conversation with my husband about this. Like a spark went off, and it was like my aha moment. But My parents are divorced. I was never close with my father at all. But when I think I was like 10, like 9 or 10 years old, the one and only time I visited my dad, who lived in Virginia. And we were playing Trivial Pursuit. And, you know, when you're 10 years old and you're playing Trivial Pursuit, that's from like the 80s. I was born in the 80s, but I remember the 90s more than I remember the 80s. And I get this question about a movie, and I didn't know the answer. And I was such an awkward child, like very self-conscious, very introverted. And my dad just made fun of me for not knowing the answer, just like profusely in front of everybody, in front of my sister and my grandmother and my stepmom. And he kept saying, watch the credits when a film's over. Don't you read the credits? And, you know, when you're 10 years old, in my mind, I'm such an idiot. Like, I'm not worth anything. I'm going through all these, like, horrible thoughts about myself. And I think there was a dream moment on that was like, what? I'm not only going to know everything there is to know about movies, but and you're going to have to read the credits, and you'll see my name there, you know? And there was, my husband and I were talking about like really embarrassing moments you have when you're at that awkward age. And that's the one that came to mind. And, you know, I kind of said to him, I think somewhere deep within me, I always felt this need to kind of prove, you know, that I'm capable of doing whatever I set my mind to. And that became film. And in college, there were moments where I definitely, is this what I want for the rest of my life? Do I want to time in something that really be self-centered and corrupt and totally immoral and negative? And then I'm like, I would always stop myself and say, first of all, I don't have to do this forever. You know, I could do anything I want to do. I'm not limited just because I'm studying this, but also there's this awesome side to film that I think, you know, Fred Rogers really explains the best, that there's a power behind film and television, and it really evokes change, and it can be a person's best friend, and it can be a voice to somebody that doesn't have a voice, and it can be somebody that's going through something similar to a character in a sitcom or in a film or even in, you know, an educational video. And anything that has that kind of power but still lends itself to creativity and intelligent thought and interpretation, like that to me is worth a 14-hour day. It's worth missing my niece's birthday every once in a while for now. But, you know, it's a hard field, but it's a very rewarding field, I think. You know, I've watched movies that have pulled me out of, you know, anxiety-ridden moments. And to me, it's like there's a good laugh or a good cry, or, you know, it's going to be very cathartic. And I love that I get to be a part of that in any way that I can. You know, casting it's been really interesting from the start, and it keeps becoming something that I find myself just getting more and more intrigued by as I work more in the field. And there's kind of a power in it too, because I get to work with the crew and I get to see it from that end, but I'm also working with the actors and I'm seeing it from the more theatrical side. And it's just such a fun, intimate type of job. Like, you know, if you're one of those people where you describe your job just to the basics, you know, just down to the core of it, I essentially watch people pretend to be somebody else and then judge them, you know, and pass their audition off, or, you know, I either send it to the director, don't send it to the director. And there's something kind of cool in that, to watch other people express themselves and I get to watch other people do what they absolutely love to do, and it shows. And I don't know. I think I would be really, I think I would feel very excluded from that if I decided to go into any other line of work. You know, I think that was always something that's so appealing about theater, and why a lot of people get into theater is that you work really, really hard on something for a month, 2 months, 3 months. You know, you do a run of a show for, you know, weeks on end, and you are a tight-knit family, and it's like family, you know, and you learn about each person and their life, and then you place characters, and then it's over. And you kind of just have this little that you did, never going to get it back, and it's never going to be the same again. And it's like that for film. There's some films I worked on that I look at them and I think, oh my God, like I made it through that. Like, I can't believe I made it through that when it was horrible. And then there are others that I look at and it's like, oh my God, I missed that. Like I missed that crew, and I missed that like cast that we had, and you know, the inside jokes and the memories are just, it's awesome. And I have this, you know, DVD to kind of remind me of that time in my life. And I don't know that you get that really with every job. I feel like we're very lucky to kind of have that. And it really is the thing that, you know, keeps me going, because it's, I don't know, I've met so many fun people in the field. I can't imagine myself really doing it in any other way.
You met somebody who was in college or about to be in college who had an inkling of wanting to be part of casting. What would you tell them to do? You mentioned that your school didn't say anything. I feel confident that a number of film schools don't have a casting department where they explain how it works and what to do and everything like that. So what would you tell somebody that was interested in that?
It's so funny because when this little docuseries that came to Pittsburgh, I was an associate producer, but I worked with them. I was funding the whole thing. And so my main job was to kind of talk to film students at that time and find out what they wanted to learn more about and what department to put them in. And that was a thing. There were a lot of kids that mentioned casting. It's like, you know, we don't have anything here to kind of express the importance, what you hire an actor, what's a SAG contract like, like all these normal questions.
All the business stuff.
Deeper work. The business end, I feel like Point Park kind of left that out there. They didn't really cover any of that. And I think really the most important aspect of being a casting director or working in casting is acknowledging the field. I told a lot of the interns that it's essentially directing. You are going on your instincts. You're bringing actors in that you've already vetted just from their resumes. You're people that you yourself feel that you can trust to portray a role off of a script that you just read your first interpretation off of, and it's your responsibility to direct that actor to the best of your ability before the director even becomes involved, before the producers become involved. You need to relay to that talent what they're going to do. Because really, as a casting director, when you bring somebody in, they're getting a snippet, of the scene. They're getting 2 to 3 pages of, 130-page script, and they have to kind of interpret it however they best see fit. And, those directing courses is a great way to kind of train your mind on how to speak to an actor and how to yourself a scene, not based on, day for night, not based on, what props do I need? What setting am I in? You're reading in between the lines of the character. And, a lot of the interns I worked with, that wanted to get into casting, they had been studying directing, and they felt like they needed that time with the actor to kind of learn more about acting itself, because that's another aspect that they don't really teach in film is acting and the techniques. I mean, there are many different techniques that actors use to reach a certain point, and if as a director you're not aware of those methods, then you don't have with your talent, and that's huge. You know, it really taught me. Now, go to college, kind of crazy. You know, my boss, who's the casting director for 35 plus years, never stepped foot in a university. You know, she was fresh out of high school, worked for a production company as like a, you know, basically a receptionist, and just slowly moved her way up and learned about casting that way. And when I started with her, she was very adamant about the same thing. Acting's important. And if you're going to work as a casting director and you don't know the first thing about acting, you're not going to bring in good talent. So, you know, I encourage anybody that wants to even remotely get into the field to do a little research on, you know, method acting and, you know, read plays. You know, that was another huge thing. When I was casting for just student films, you know, I would look at, to have auditions, I would look at plays. I would find monologues and try to give those to the actors that we were auditioning to try to, like, just see what they could do standalone without reading a script, and better put myself in their shoes. Because I think it's really important to know how an actor works in order to be able to talk to them the way that's going to help them get to where they need to be and where you want them to be for your film. But, you know, I think the other thing that's very interesting about the field is that a lot of departments, I shouldn't say departments, but a lot of people that are in the industry don't necessarily look at the casting director as a director. And that's a reason that there's no category at the Oscars for a casting director, because they don't feel strongly. There's a huge thing with the Directors Guild that they don't want to see the casting director become this noticed or, you know, awarded position, because they don't see that in their mind as being worth it. The director does all of that. The casting director doesn't have anything to do with it, and that could be further from the truth.
Yeah, wow, that's pretty wild that they would, like, specifically keep them away. I in another interview a couple weeks ago, I was talking to somebody and mentioned that I actually watch television shows now based on this one casting director. Like, we saw 3 or 4 things, and the casting director is Sharon Bialy.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay.
My husband and I were watching something where she cast it, and then another show came up and she cast it. And we were like, wow, both of the shows were just so super on point, and like everybody in it was great, like even down to the tiniest role. So we were like, yeah, we're going to do it. So then I started literally just Googling to find out, or went to IMDb to see what she worked on to pick the next thing that we watched. Like, it was like, okay, what's the next show we're going to do? Well, here's these 10 that we could choose from. Okay, what did she work on? We're like, all right, we'll go with that one. So, and I don't remember what the shows. I remember I think the first show we watched with her was Justified. But it was good. Like, once we got into it, it was like, now it's like we can call it. Like, we'll see a few actors and we're like, yeah, that's Sharon Bialy right there. And it's like, it's so fascinating to me. Like, now that I'm more aware of different departments, I'll see the work that they can do. Like, I'll be like, oh yeah, I can tell that she cast this, because it's like, I've gotten used to, because we sought out stuff that she did and you know, who knows? It's like a whole. Her name is the name I see. It could be any number of people in the office or whatever. But like they just have like a uncanny eye, and I was like, oh,
yeah,
so good. You know, and I think it's
so
really
true.
important and definitely something to be respected, which is also the reason why I, you know, when I was talking to Christy, mentioned like I need to talk to more people that do casting, because I just, for me and like for my husband, it's such a, we just notice, we've started to read the names, like, you know, we've started to read the credits. Like now we'll seek out movies by, you know, people watch movies by the certain directors. We look for casting directors. And what was the other thing that we did? It was something random where it was like we were watching all the stuff that this one guy had done. And I want to say maybe it was the director, maybe it was like, but it was like TV director. Like it was like, we didn't watch a whole series. We just watched occasional episodes. We're like, yeah, all the ones he did.
There are so many directors for television that they blow me away, that I seek out the 1 or 2 episodes they do for a series that I maybe would never watch, but I want to watch their episode because I'm so captivated by them. Yeah. I do that a lot. I mean, it's so interesting to see somebody's calling card in a show or in a film, because you can immediately recognize somebody's style. And there are several casting directors that we've worked with that, you know, at the end of the movie, I'm waiting. I want to know that it was them because I felt like it was them. You know, my husband and I were just watching True Detective. And I'm sitting there and I'm just like, I know Vicky did this. Like, I know that's her casting. We worked with her before, and it was. And my husband does that with directors. My husband he's like an encyclopedia for directors. It's crazy. I am not that good. I can't call it out like he can, but there is on every occasion where I'm like, you know what? I know who did this. I can tell. I can just tell from the type of person. And it's mostly in the small roles. It's usually in the, you know, there's like a thing in casting where it's like the smaller the role, the more quirky the actor. So they're more memorable. And like, I love that saying, and I don't feel like a lot of people follow it, but there are casting directors that do, and you can tell. And they're usually the projects where you walk away and you're like, do you remember the guy that, he was in that show and he was like he's the bus driver. Oh, he was hilarious. And
I know all those guys. That's my thing. I know all the small roles. Like, I'm like, you know, he was the bus driver on this, and then he was like the guy that died first in Lost, and then like he was this guy, you know. Like, I am an encyclopedia for B and C list actors, and literally anybody who does multiple commercials. Like, whenever I see a person, and like I saw this one girl, and I get really excited when I see them in multiple commercials. And it was like, I saw this one girl in 2 commercials in a row, and like, I know that Hulu is not thinking about that when it's giving me commercials, right? But I'm like, hey, you were just in the shoe commercial. Good for you, girlfriend. You got both. Like, that's me watching
like,
TV.
National commercial.
Yeah, I'm like, you did it. Love it. Nice. It was international too. One of them was internationals for like Australian shoes, and then the other one was a U.S. commercial. So I was all like, "Ooh, killing it, multinational!" I was real excited for her.
I love that.
When she's in her first movie, I'll tell you, because I will recognize her.
I love it. Anytime my husband and I go to a movie, this has become just touching back on the fact that you can work with actors from all over the place,
right?
But I love it. We'll go to the movies. You know, we went and we saw I, Tonya. And
that was so good.
There's like 4 actors in there that we work with regularly. And I'm like, killing it, you guys. Like, you know, Jason Davis, who plays Tanya's father. Mm-hmm. We love Jason. He is such a good actor. And he's one of those actors that just loves to work. Like, he'll take anything. He just loves the industry. And, every time this happens, anytime I see an actor that we've cast or we work with, I elbow my husband. I'm like, oh my God, I know him. And at this point, my husband's probably like, okay, I get it. But it's just, you get so excited. You're like, no, they're killing it. You don't understand. It's a hard industry. Like, good for them. Like, this is a big movie. It was the same for Hidden Figures. When Hidden Figures came out, there was an actor in that. And I'm like, I had no idea. Like, we get the flyers and the emails from actors that are like, hey, I just want to let you know I'm in this movie. Or, hey, I just want to let you know, like, my national commercial's airing. And that's cool. But then some of our actors that we work with, they're in these, like, Oscar-nominated films, and they're not emailing us and saying, hey, I'm in this, I'm in the Hidden Figures. I wanted to let you know. So when I see them, I email them, and I'm like, hey, you were awesome. Because I just get so excited for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I, Tanya was a good one too. Yeah, that was a solid one where the casting was all like, oh, okay, interesting, fun.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Oh yeah. When we were doing. I just get fascinated by the way that actors like put themselves out there and like their ability to just kind of do anything. And a lot of the people that work in Pittsburgh, they're coming from far away. Sometimes they're paying for their own travel, to do the role. We were working on Outsiders, which was a TV series for WGN. We needed the role was like a lawyer type character. He was in 2 episodes, and, we put a call out to our agents and to some agents up and down the East Coast. And John Hurd, we hear from his agent, and she's like, John is really interested in that role, and he just wants it. And we're like, John Hurd? Like, the dad from Home Alone wants this little dinky, stupid role? Like, why? Like, he's better than that, And his agent was like, no, dude, he just, like, wants to work, and he thinks the show's cool, and, he's interested in it, and he wants to get back into television, and yeah, so if you guys would be interested in him, he'd totally do it and get himself there. And we're like, that's insane. We're like, but of course we're not going to say no to John Hurd. Like, and he did. He came in and he was like so cool and excited to do it. And I actually bumped into him at the hotel because I was getting married. He was working the weekend of my wedding, and he stayed in the hotel that I was staying in. And I went up to him, and I'm like, my hair's soaking wet, and I look atrocious because I'm already a half an hour late to my own wedding. And I went up to him, and I was like, Mr. Hurd? And he just laughed. He said, yes. I said, well, I'm the casting associate at Donna Belajac Casting, and we cast you in Outsiders, and I just wanted to say I think it's really cool that you were interested in the project. And he's like, oh, man, I've always wanted to come to Pittsburgh. It's a great city. Like, I'm excited to do this. Thank you guys for, getting back to Susan, my agent. And he's like, yeah, it's a great city. And I'm like, cool. Like, I'm like just shocked to be talking to John Hurd. And then I was like, well, I have to go because I'm getting married today. And he goes, you're getting married today? And I mean, that is just, to me, it's like the funniest thing ever when you have those down-to-earth moments. Because in my mind, I'm building half of these actors up to being, like, gods. And then you meet them and they're like, I'm just a regular person. Like, don't forget that. I'm just slightly more publicized than everybody else.
Right. I'm just symmetrical and can speak out loud in front of people.
Yes. Yes.
It's funny sometimes when you're like, yeah, that's your talent, isn't it? That's what you can do. You're pretty and you can talk. All right, I'll take it.
I'll take it. I mean, yeah.
Hey, as long as you're going to do, if you can do it better than the rest of them, I'll take it.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, that's so funny. Missy, thank you so much for chatting with me and sharing so many stories. Your energy for the like the attitude, the positivity that you've, had while we're chatting is like, oh man, I bet you it's great to be auditioning for you. So I'm glad that the actors both in New York and LA and Pittsburgh get the opportunity to work with you.
I'm lucky. I'm very lucky. And trust me, there are many days where Donna and I are like, what the F? Why did we decide to do this with our lives? But it's such a fun field. I always try to remind, we've worked with some pretty horrible casting directors, I will say that make the job really hard. And I always say to Donna, how and why are they like this? We have really cool jobs. On the daily, we get to work with artists, and half of our work truly can be done from home, which is pretty cool. And, we're gifted at the end of every project we do with a wrap gift. Maybe it's not the greatest wrap gift, but what normal job gives you a gift at the end of every job? And then throws a big party where you can drink for free. And then you have this release of the project that you worked on for the whole world gets to see it. You got to put it into perspective that you're going to have bad days at any job. So it's why would anybody ever bitch about this one? Because it's just so...
People can be miserable about everything,
Oh, it's so true.
People who want to be miserable can be miserable, even if they're swimming in a pool filled with diamonds. They're like, oh, it hurts. True. It cuts my skin. Whatever. They're diamonds.
I want pearls.
Why am I not swimming in pearls? I don't know. They're so much softer. Okay, relax. Just enjoy your champagne. Come on.
Oh, it's true. It's true. Well, thanks for having me. It's awesome. It's been really fun.
Good.
I love talking about it. It's a really cool field, and I hate that it's not as recognized as it should be. There are some people that pull for it, but check out the doc Casting By. It's really interesting. It's shed some light kind of on the negativity that comes from the Directors Guild towards the field, and it was very eye-opening for me. It's on HBO. It's a really cool doc about Marion Doherty, who is she's really kind of the Kickstarter of casting directors. She's she discovered a lot of talent like Dustin Hoffman and Jon Voight.
That's awesome.
Back in the early days.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to check it out. That sounds so cool. Well, thanks so much. Of course. Of course. Anytime. And I mean, if you ever want to audition for us, just let me know. Just shoot me an email if you're willing to come to Pittsburgh for a job. I know you're kind of far away from us, but we've actually cast actors from Houston, so. That's funny. I'll tell my agent. I just finished doing a 2019 has started off really like a bang for me. I had sort of taken time off for having the baby, and but I've kept all my doors open. I didn't tell my agent I couldn't act. There just weren't as many roles available, and so I was just like, it's fine, or I would say no if I couldn't make it, and it wasn't a big deal. But all of a sudden, I got this audition right at the end of the year, and so the first thing that I did was I got to go do this commercial, and I was like, oh yay, I love it. I love doing work and making money. And then I'm going to Florida to teach improv workshops next week, and it's that's my goal for the next year is be in commercials and teach as many improv workshops as you can. So it's cool, all right. Get myself back in the swing of things. Yeah, so to be honest, if I'm in Pittsburgh, it's much more likely that I'm teaching improv workshops.
Hey, let us know. We have a school. Donna has, which was her big thing. She was a lot of actors, because that's what we always get, is we get phone calls where it's I've always wanted to be an actor. I'm a butcher, but like my real passion is acting. And we're like, oh, have you taken a class? No, but I'm just natural. Okay, but you should take a class because there's a lot of talent out there. It's very competitive. So Donna started a school because she kept getting that question, like, where can I take acting classes? And she's like, yeah, where can people take acting classes? So our school's been up and running for almost 10 years, I want to say, probably even longer, because I think it was there before I was there. And we teach everything. We have classes for kids and teens up to we teach a class. We offer a class really that helps teens prepare for auditions to get into programs for college.
Oh yeah.
And it's called Nailing Your Audition. It really just preps them for, Carnegie Mellon or NYU, or, these schools that have really hard to get into conservatories. Yeah. And then we teach intermediate, beginner, and advanced adult classes. Sometimes we do workshops for on camera, and we had Cotter Smith teaching a class. Cotter's in Mindhunter. He ended up moving to Pittsburgh, and he's awesome. He's got years of experience. And we were like, hey, Cotter, come teach a 5-week class. He's like, cool. So we take in instructors that, maybe they would just want to do like a weekend thing, or, we try to keep it diverse so that we mix it up a little bit. We don't want the students to get bored. That's the big thing. So yeah,
if you ever have that too, that's really great.
If you know anybody in Pittsburgh and you want to stop and visit them for a week, let me know, and maybe you can teach a class while you're there.
It's very likely. That's one of my New Year's resolution is like find places to go teach improv workshops where I know somebody who's like, yeah, I'll hang out with your baby for a day or two. Like, cool.
Yeah.
Great. Because my husband travels for work, so it's me and the baby. So my mom is a snowbird. That's why I'm going to Florida. I'm bringing the baby to her so she can hang out with him because she never gets to see him. I'm from Boston originally. And then I can go teach workshops. So I'm like, okay, what are other cities that I have like someone who's like, oh, I wish I could see the baby. Like, great. How would you like to see the baby for an 8-hour section on a Saturday? Because I'm going to go teach workshops at this place. Yeah, absolutely. I got to figure out that's my 2019 goal, is to work that into a viable situation to the point where I want someday when my child is older, I want him to be like, why do we have to travel so much when I was a kid? That's what I'm looking for.
This is why, and it really worked out. This is also why you're interested in it.
Yeah, we'll see.
No, I love it.
We make jokes that my kid's going to be an accountant someday because he's going to be like, oh, God, give me a 9 to 5, because neither of us work 9 to 5. So it's going to be like, God, ugh. Forget
isn't it the truth, though? People that work 9 to 5 are so freaked out by, like, the freelancers' schedule. And my husband and I have been doing it for so long now that we're just so used to it. Like, that fear of when is a job going to come in, like, we kind of lost that years ago. Like, we're so used to that fear that we ride the wave now. We're just like, it'll happen. It always happens. Like, it's just how it is. Meanwhile, our parents are like, oh my God, how are you not biting your nails? How are you not terrified that you're not going to be able to pay your bills?
Well, the funny thing is,
we're optimistically dumb. We're in our own world.
The other thing too is that, like, people don't mind if you pay things early. Like, for instance, though my landlady needs to be reminded today. So my husband works in conventions, right? Like, so big conventions, and he travels all around the country being the audio or the video guy, whatever, for these huge thousands of people conventions kinds of things, And so there are times of the year when there aren't conventions. So like December, not a big time when people are having conventions because it's the holidays. You know, they're not going to do business things. And then in the middle of the summer, July, not a big convention time. So during those months, they have a tendency, or the first couple years that we were doing this, they were the dead months. We had no money. We had nothing. We didn't know what to do. And then we were like, wait, we have all this money earlier. Why don't we just pay rent early? And then we won't have that rent money, sure, to like live off of or whatever, but we've paid rent and then we're good and we're not worried about it. So like in November, at the beginning of November, we paid for December and January rent. And it was great. And it was great for us because at the time it was like, yeah, we're swimming. We're like doing great because October and November are super busy. People are tons of conventions. I didn't see them all month, both those months. But, you know, yeah, that's the drawback. But, you know, it's okay. But, you know, so we pay the thing and then people just don't like even my landlady. Today, my landlady sent me a message and she was like, you haven't paid rent. And I was like, no, I've paid rent. I was like, I paid rent 2 months early. I was like, I paid it super, super early. Like
I was very on top of it this time.
Yeah, because, you know, when I realized you're not going to have any money in December, so you're not going to be able to pay January rent. It's like, okay, let's pay that now.
True. Yeah, let's just get it out of the way. We don't have to worry about it. It'll be no stress for us.
Yeah.
We do the similar thing. It's like, you know, we plan. We kind of know when we're not work because it's like you said, and their films don't generally come in November or December because it's like Thanksgiving and Christmas, and they avoid that. So we know we're going to be down at that time, generally speaking. And it's always, you know, I look forward to it. I'm like, I can't wait for that time because, you know, we're working so much during the rest of the year that it's like that's when I get a vacation. But
yeah, my husband loves being at home for 3 weeks. It's great.
Yeah, it's wonderful. But it's not when you're like biting your nails. But yeah, like you said, you make enough during the lucrative times. It's like, I'll just pay it off now, and then I don't have to worry about it. You know, or
yeah, I mean, as long as you're not like throwing dollar bills on top of it, it's like, okay, don't get all the champagne because you got a big paycheck. Yeah. Let that stretch multiple months. How about that?
Yeah. Plus, it's like, I'm lucky. My husband works in the art department. He's trying to move into writing because he's just a screenwriter. But that's the great thing about casting is we can take multiple jobs at once. So anytime there are multiple jobs, I get excited because I'm like, oh, this is great because I definitely can put money aside. Like I can take a paycheck and I can put it aside and save it for when I'm not working, and the nail biting is gone.
Yeah.
But there's still that like level of fear for people. Like my mom will call me, you know, because Pittsburgh is not a huge city, and like the second that there's even a discussion of a film coming into town, everybody knows about it. And my mom will call me and she'll be like, did you hear him? I heard there's a film coming in. You're going to be okay. You're going to be fine. I just wanted to let you know. So like, if you're worrying, like, don't worry about it. And I'm like, Mom, I'm not worried about it. I'm not thinking about work. I'm so happy to not be working at the moment. Now, you know, if I've been off for a year, maybe I'll worry. But until then, I think I'm fine.
Yeah, you know what though? Super weird. I've been off for a year, and it's the weirdest thing. So when I had the baby, my husband was like, well, you know, can you stay home with the baby? Because, you know, I travel all the time and you know, we can't really afford daycare. And I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. So like, I didn't do anything for like a year. Like, really didn't do anything. And it was like, wow. I mean, don't get me wrong. I say that, but yet at the same time, like, I've still been doing like improv and sketch stuff, you know, like little projects here and there for sure. But it's like, whoa, I couldn't believe it. And then it was okay. It wasn't terrible. Like, didn't kill us. Like, you know, now that I'm back bringing some revenue in, I'm like, oh, it's exciting. Look at this, you know, woo. Ooh, I made more in January of 2019 than I did all of 2018. Oh, but it's just like you think you're even going to die when that happens, but you don't.
Yeah.
You figure it out. Like, it's so funny, the worrying people. I'm like, what? Stop worrying. It's all going to be great, or it's all going to be terrible. It's all just how you look at it. So just relax.
That was a lot. I mean, a lot of my friends, when we graduated, they were like, I can't take a film job. I have to have a full-time paying job because I have rent I have to pay. And I'm like, so do I, and student loans, which is basically rent. Like, I've got 2 rents I have to pay in a month. But, you take the leap and then you're fine. And you stress. When we first moved into our apartment, I hadn't worked most of that year. My husband's like, we just got this apartment where, rent is like $1,200 a month. And this is the year that you're not getting very much work. Like, we're going to get kicked out. And I'm like, we're fine. Like, I have some money in savings, and then, like, I'll pay some of my bills with my credit card, and, I'll figure it out, and then I'll play catch up later. And you do. But it is funny, kind of like the thing, like the tricks you do to like manage your money, like eating grilled cheese for a month. Eat grilled cheese for a month, that's fine. Like, I'll sacrifice eating healthy for, just because it's cheap, or we always joke now that, we pay so much to live in this apartment and we're never here that it's really like our dog's apartment, and we just visit him from time to time because you work so much to pay for such a nice place, and then you're never in it. And that's my biggest complaint to my husband. I'm like, when we have time off, like, we need to start utilizing the things that we spent money on. Like, we have a huge TV. Let's watch it. And let's, we both have laptops. We have 2 gaming systems. We have cell phones. I'm like, let's conserve some money and enjoy the things we spent our money on. And he's always like, I want to go out. I want to see movies. I want to, like, spend time with people. I say that as, like, we're going to go to Ireland, like, at the end of the month and spend all of our money there. But it is funny, though, kind of what you learned about yourself.
Also, they like your money. They'll take it. It'll be put to good use.
I'm very excited about it. I've never been, and, like, everybody says it's beautiful, and it's going to be cold, but it's going to be no colder than it is here. So,
yeah, there's something great and historical about it.
Yeah, and they speak English, which that was a big thing for me. I was like, we've got to go somewhere because we're going so quickly that it's English speaking, because we have no time to prep. So
thick accent though, so watch out. Yeah. They're speaking English, know that. Too. But
but there's an accent on it.
What did you just say? Like, what? That happens with Australians too.
Oh, have you been to Australia?
No, I've interviewed actually a lot of Australians. Weirdly, gosh. I've done phone interviews with people. And then also, I just interviewed a guy who's from Argentina who lives in New Zealand. And he moved to New Zealand because one of the many reasons he moved was because he wanted to work on his English. And I was like, how'd that go? And I was like, number one, I'm talking to you, so clearly it went great. But also like, whoa, that's insane. Wow. Like, what a choice of English that you made.
I know, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, but, like, that's awesome at the same time, because I was just saying this, like, we watched Conan O'Brien the other night, and he was talking to a group of guys from Palestine, and half of them were speaking beautiful English. And I said to my husband, I'm like, this is what's wrong with America, is that, you go to other countries, and most people can speak English and their native language. And then you come to America and we're like, we can speak English and a little bit of Spanish just because we were forced to take something in high school. But, like,
we can speak American slang. Is that fine?
Yeah. Oh, gosh. All the dialects here, you're either Southern or from up north or even Pittsburghese, which is so funny when people try to do Pittsburghese. It always cracks me up. It's a blast. We just worked on a project where they wanted all of the actors to have a thick Pittsburgh accent. Oof. And we're like, oh, guys, I mean, really, it's not that strong anymore. It's kind of, it was something, it was big in the 80s, but I feel like it's kind of filtered out over the generations. And we'd get these auditions and it would come out sounding like Minnesotan or, like they were from West Virginia or Boston. There was this weird hybrid accent. I'm like, oh, this is such a hard one for people to get. And it's not really one that people have to get. Like, let Pittsburghese die. It's a bad accent.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I'm from Boston, like I said, and literally every single movie that tries to do Boston accents that aren't done by actual people from Boston are terrible. Like, everybody, it's like somewhere everyone decided the Kennedys were Massachusetts. We're like, no, guys, no one sounds like them. Only they sound like them. No one does. Like, oh yeah, it's terrible. The Departed. Oh, why?
Cringeworthy.
It's just so terrible. Like, I'm not going to lie, I think I watched like 3/4 of that movie before, and my husband had to tell me it was set in Boston. I was like, wait, this is in Boston? He was like, yeah, it's the Boston mob. And I was like, it is? No. Who are those guys? No. No one's Irish right now on the screen. Oh. No one is Irish. Yeah. What is going on?
Yeah.
Listen, I know the Boston mob. God. Like, personally, they're Irish. Anyway. Oh God.
Well,
yeah.
That was like that movie that came out with Johnny Depp.
Oh, Johnny Depp is an anomaly of all kinds.
Oh my gosh. He plays, what is that movie called? It wasn't that long ago that it came out. He plays Whitey Bulger.
Oh, yeah.
Is that the name of the character?
Yep,
and
that's
I
him.
was like,
he's a real person.
I'm like, why him? Like, and then they like put all this prosthetic and this makeup on him, and in the end, he kind of just looked like Ray Liotta, and he was like acting like Ray Liotta, and I was like, this is so weird because one, isn't the guy like, yeah, I'm like, isn't Ray Liotta Italian? And isn't this guy supposed to be Irish? And why don't you cast Johnny Depp to be an Irish guy?
Yeah.
It was so weird. My husband's like, come on, like, you're being like a really big critic and you're like missing the point of the film. I'm like, I can't enjoy the film because Johnny Depp is trying to look like somebody that he's definitely not, and he's not pulling it off.
I don't know this for a fact, but I would put money on the idea that Johnny Depp probably produced the film. Because the film wasn't very good, okay? It didn't really, like, capture... Like Whitey Bulger was the boogeyman when I was growing up. Like, it was real. And so, like, whenever I see those movies, I'm like, all right, show me. Let's see. And it's like, nope. And I'm, clearly throw them out the window. But yeah, I bet you a lot of people are obsessed with that guy, Whitey Bulger. He was elusive and played both sides. And it's hard to know if he's a hero or a villain at all times in any point in the story. And so I bet you Johnny Depp was like, oh yeah, I'll give you $6 million. That'll be my contribution, and then you don't have to pay me or whatever. And then they were like, "Okay, yeah, you can play him." Something
yeah. He's like,
that.
I have to play this character. This character's important to me. I feel very connected to him.
Yeah, I mean, at this point in his career, I feel like that's what he's doing. If he's not doing like a Tim Burton romp, then he's playing characters of people that he's like interested in, like Fear and Loathing. He was very obsessed with Hunter S. Thompson, and like, you know, all the characters that he's playing now, especially since he's become a bit of a weirdo. I know that he's always been a weirdo, but I just mean like now that he's older and sort of like him being like rude and rude to not just women but also everyone and also culture. And he seems to have a drinking problem. And I know I shouldn't believe tabloids, but if I do believe tabloids, then he's definitely spending more money on wine than he's making in a year. So I think he's got troubles, is pretty much the end of that.
He looks like he has it. He looks like he has a drinking problem.
Yeah.
Like he's like definitely gotten softer. And like,
yeah.
He did Kevin Smith's movie, which was horrible. It was such a bad film.
Movie?
Yoga Hosers.
Oh, I did not realize that was Kevin Smith. Oh,
and
no.
It just
and Johnny Depp's in it? Oh.
Yeah, and it's, you know, Kevin Smith is like kind of an anomaly because like Clerks is like, you know, it's a cult classic in a sense, you know. If you're really going to break it down, it's a terrible movie, but
yeah, it's like a college film and it's terrible. 100%. But,
yeah.
You know.
But it's like a time capsule too. Yeah, you know, I remember my husband showed it to me and the whole time I watched it, I was like, this movie's terrible. And then when it was over, I loved it because I'm like, it's just so 90s. Like, I love it. But his new stuff is just so like weird and out there. And he did Yoga Hosers with, you know, his daughter and then Johnny Depp's daughter.
Ooh.
And I'm like, I kind of want to see it because I'm curious like how his daughter is as an actress. And my husband and I watched it. I'm like, this is so horrible. And then Johnny Depp shows up and I'm like, what is Johnny Depp doing? Like, what? I was like, I want to see Johnny Depp, like, What's Eating Gilbert Grape Johnny Depp, you know? Like, I miss, like,
that guy
method,
is
but not,
gone
like,
with
weird.
Leonardo. That guy is gone with young Leonardo. Come on.
Oh, out the window.
Come on.
So true.
Imagine if you tried to have a conversation with Leonardo DiCaprio right now. It's impossible. I imagine he is just like rich kid, fat on the hog, like doesn't understand real life anymore. But he used to. He worked hard. This
was so funny when we were working on Love and Other Drugs. The costume designer's daughter, she was kind of a costumer. She helped out, and she was telling the story of when she met Leonardo DiCaprio because her mom worked on Titanic.
Oh, right.
She's like, she's like, I was this real awkward kid, you know, and I was kind of gawky and I was like really skinny and I had like big knees and like long arms. She said, my mom picked me up from a lacrosse game. So she takes me back to the office and I begged her not to because I looked like crap. She's like, I had braces and no makeup. And she goes, I started my period that day. I was so upset. She's laying on the couch in her mom's office, and her mom's like, we're going to go get food. We'll go to the cafeteria and eat with the crew, and then we'll come back here. I'll take you home. So they head down to get the food, and on their way back after eating, Leonardo DiCaprio is walking on the opposite side of the hallway, and Hannah is like beside herself. She's like, I had it planned, like, when I would meet him and what I would be wearing and what I would look like, and I was absolutely not in any of those things. She said he's walking down the hallway and he stops and he says hi to my mom, and my mom's talking to him, and then my mom introduces me, and I like can't get words out because I'm just so embarrassed. I'm like 50 Shades of Red. She says, and then, you know, I didn't even say hi. And it got really awkward. And Leonardo was like, okay, well, I guess I'll just see you guys later. And he walks to, you know, like to go towards the cafeteria. And Hannah just turns around and the only thing she could get out was something like, try the potatoes or something like that. Because it's the only thing she could think of. And she's like, and for the rest of my life, like, because I remember telling my friends I met Leonardo DiCaprio, and the only thing I said was try the potatoes. And then she was like, then cut to like 10 years later, she's in this little shop on Rodeo Drive, and she's with one of her best friends, and Leonardo walks in, and she pretended like she didn't know him. He came up to her. He remembered her from that moment. And he said, Hannah, hey, it's been such a long time. And she went, I'm sorry, do I know you? She was like, I felt like I needed to do it to kind of like gain the power back.
Oh my God.
Like, but it's Leonardo DiCaprio. Like, even if you hadn't met him, you would know him. Like, everybody knows who he is. Oh. And
how did that story end? Did he just go like, oh, I'm sorry, you must be someone I thought I knew, and walked away?
She said he was so, like, humble. He was like, oh, it's Leonardo. I worked with your mom on Titanic. And then she couldn't pretend anymore that she didn't know him. She was like, oh, yes, of course. But she was
Titanic!
I know, I'm like, come on. I'm like, this is crazy. And then she was telling us about this girl. I'm like, could she have a better life? Come on. Like, you know, you meet him twice. The second time, he comes up to you because he remembers you, which is just, that's flattering as it is. But then she tells us her first kiss. We're like all sitting around. It's her birthday, and we're telling stories. And she goes, well, my first kiss, I was at this party, and it was New Year's Eve, and there, you know, there was a big crowd of us, and my friends all had their boyfriends with them, and I didn't have anybody, and I turned, and there was this guy next to me, and it was midnight, and he looked at me, and I looked at him, and we kissed each other, and it was Heath Ledger. I was like, your first kiss was Heath Ledger? She was like, yeah. I'm like, oh my God.
Wow.
I'm like, can we exchange lives? Because my first kiss was like on a broken futon. And League of Extraordinary Gentlemen was playing on the TV. Like, I would gladly take your life right now.
Wow. Super wild. Thanks for listening to Yes But Why Podcast. Check out all our episodes on yesbutwhypodcast.com or check out all the content on our network, HC Universal, at hcuniversalnetwork.com.